When I was 9, my family rented a small summer home for a month. And over the course of that time, we had friends and extended family join us. And it turned into a bit of a game of musical chairs with the bedrooms. One day, my uncle noticed that he was missing a $100 bill. And it was found in the bedroom that I, among others, had slept in. I remember he brought me into the den, he sat me down, and there he accused me of stealing from him. Over the course of the interrogation that followed, the harder that I cried and the more adamantly that I denied the accusations, the louder and bolder that they became. Like many people accused of wrongdoing, I was not in a position to offer positive proof of my innocence. And like many accusers, my uncle jumped from suspicion to accusation to a final verdict of guilt about that fast. I was released, but I was punished too. I was no longer permitted to have a bedroom of my own in the summer home. When you have 4 brothers and you're the only girl in the family, that's a big deal. People guarded their valuables more closely. I was no longer someone that could be trusted. 30 years later, I still remember it. Like the stench of an accusation that you just can't wash off your skin. I happened to cross paths with my uncle not too long ago. I reminded him of the case of the $100 bill. Oh, he remembered. He went red in the face. He reluctantly admitted. Someone else had stepped up and admitted to taking the money just days after my interrogation. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Why didn't he tell me? I believe that my uncle was imprisoned by his own thought process. He had defaulted to judgment. He left himself no space to gather further information, no space for other perspectives, no space in which to be wrong, and ultimately no space in which to make things right with me. The consequence was the cannibalization of our relationship. As a criminal defense lawyer, it is my job and my privilege to defend others against accusations. And one thing that I love about my job is that I get to be a modern day gladiator. So every day I get to step into a ring and engage in battle with someone else's future at stake. My words are my weapons, and they make the difference between a person's freedom and a person losing their life as they know it. My words have tremendous power, and so do yours. Thanks to social media, the trend today is towards using words carelessly, vindictively, and more publicly than ever. We air our grievances against those we dislike or hate or think we should hate on the basis of something that someone else says. We punish based on accusations alone. It is costing people their livelihoods, and in some cases, their lives. We have a word for it when children do this, right? Cyberbullying. And we know the consequences: intense mental distress, fractured mental health, sometimes even death. Cyberbullying is wrong. But when we do it as adults, we call it something different. We call it free speech. Now, undeniably, there are positives between the intersection of social media and the criminal justice system. Social media can and has spotlighted injustices that might otherwise have gone unnoticed, unpunished, unprosecuted, right? But the internet has allowed anyone with a keyboard to act as judge, jury, and executioner in relation to anyone accused of a crime. And the outright abuse of people for the simple act of being accused is rampant. Sometimes this even costs a life, and that was the situation for me. I had a client hounded by people on the internet who took his own life. The details? You know, the details don't matter so much. What's important for you to know is that on a Thursday, he was a regular person. He had a job, he had a family, connections, a bright future, a home. He'd never been in trouble with the law before. And on the Friday, he was handcuffed in the front yard of his home and publicly accused of a crime. News of that accusation exploded immediately on social media. And eventually he retained me. His matter worked its way through the judicial system, and in the end, I was successful in having all charges against him withdrawn. In that case, we actually had affirmative proof of his innocence. He hadn't done what he was accused to have done. But that took time. And in the space between accusation and absolution, the public at large presumed him to be guilty and punished him. Public vengeance was swift and it was unrelenting, and it cost him everything. These were words on a screen, but they cost him his job, his connections, his dignity, his anonymity, his life. This is in part why I am doing what I am doing now. I know I am not alone in seeing the danger of equating a spoken accusation with proven guilt. But I believe that the harm is cutting so much deeper than we consciously acknowledge. The undisciplined thought process by which we prosecute and punish strangers easily becomes the framework that we use against those we love. Our family, our friends, our neighbors, our colleagues at work, a 9-year-old in a den. Our collective intolerance, the unchecked habit of equating spoken word with proven truth, is causing us all harm. So why do we do it? Why do we default to prosecution? Why do we default to punishment? Well, we're hardwired as a survival mechanism to process information quickly in a way that makes us feel safe. We are beings who have brains that love certainty. We want closure, we want the dots connected, and we want it all in the span of a true crime podcast. Psychologists, neuroscientists sometimes refer to this as the reflexive brain or the reactive brain. As a lawyer, I like to think of this as our default inner system being set towards prosecution. Fortunately, we have another side, the logical side of our brain. Now, the logical side of our brain requires intentionality and discipline. It takes time, energy, effort to engage. It results in a more nuanced analysis. It gathers information, challenges assumptions, peels back the layers, and reserves judgment. Naturally, I like to think of this as your inner defense counsel. So what does that look like in practice, your inner defense counsel? Let's imagine you're sitting at your kitchen table and you learn of a violent accusation that's occurred, a violent incident, and you learn that the police have someone in custody. Your default reaction might sound something like this. Oh my God, thank God they got the guy. Lock him up, throw away the key, bring back the death penalty, maximum punishment, keep me safe. Does that sound familiar to anyone, even a little bit? Okay. So we have two options here. One, the prosecution can rest its case, and we can proceed straight to execution. Or we can hit pause. We can choose to be disciplined in our thought process, and we can allow our inner defense counsel to take the stage. So inner defense counsel might look at that fact scenario and say, am I assuming that a crime was actually committed? i.e., that it wasn't fabricated or exaggerated? That was the situation for my client. He was on the wrong side of a made-up allegation. Am I assuming that the police arrested the right person? Simply because a crime has been committed does not necessarily mean that the person you're reading about committed it. My uncle fell prey to this assumption. Many do. It's why misidentification is the leading cause of wrongful conviction. Am I making assumptions about the source and the quality of the information that I'm basing my conclusion on? Does it have the ABCs of a logical foundation? Is it accurate? Is it balanced? Is it complete? Ask yourself, do I have the evidence needed to render a final verdict on this issue, on this person, at this time? Or do I leave space? Statistics Canada recently reported that only 63% of criminal charges result in a finding of guilt. The other 37% are either withdrawn, result in a stay of proceedings, which is effectively the same thing for an accused, or a verdict of not guilty is rendered. That's over a third. consider for a moment that this means that at least some of the accusations that you learn about are never more than just words. And yet we punish. The criminal justice system is not perfect, and its flaws will look different depending on where you are standing in the courtroom. Judge, jury, lawyer, victim, witness, accused, social media commentator. But I do believe we are all aspiring towards the same goal: justice. The death penalty did not give us justice or truth or make us safer. It gave us vengeance and a dangerous margin for error. Collectively, we decided to be better than that. Now, there is a place for judgment. Oops, sir, I see you're very excited about that. Good. There is a place for judgment. There is a place for guilty verdicts, and there absolutely is a place for punishment. I'm not standing before you suggesting otherwise. My proposition for you is simply this: hitting pause, or at the very least consciously decelerating our instinct to prosecute and punish, costs us nothing. It does not mean that the truly guilty will be set free. But if we fail to pause, if we continue on the trend of equating suspicion with accusation with final verdict of guilt, the innocent will be punished. Sometimes I think back to my clients, and even to 9-year-old me, and I wonder how things might be different if there had been a little bit more logic and a little bit less reflex. And I think it's easy to see the benefit of leaving that space if you're standing in the shoes of an accused person, right? But I believe that that space is as important for the accuser as it is for the person being accused. Reminder, we don't get it right 100% of the time. And I don't think there's a single person who would want to prosecute and punish the innocent. That discipline, indeed that courage to acknowledge in our own minds, to say, you know what, I have my fears and I have my suspicions, but you know what I don't have right now? Enough to render a final verdict. That leaves us all something of tremendous value: a margin for error. Defaulting to prosecution and punishment does not make us safer or better or more tolerant or more humane, and it does nothing to move the needle towards justice. So I ask of you, the next time that you learn of an accusation, or perhaps are inclined to make one yourself, hit pause, choose to be disciplined in your thought process, allow your inner defense lawyer to take the stage, and stay back from the precipice of using your words in such a way that you have no space in which to be wrong, so that collectively we have a better shot at getting it right. Thank you.